Wow. The whole day? I mean, well, let's start with ARCA. Phenomenal. Loved that. O'Reilly's, as predicted, got my butt kicked. But I finished the race. Our goal as a team was to finish the race.
Imagine this, a historic track, a grid full of elite NASCAR drivers, champions, veterans, rising stars. Now imagine all of them getting outperformed, not by one of their own, but by someone they never expected to even compete at this level. No long NASCAR career, no traditional path, no years climbing the ranks, just raw confidence, fearless driving, and a mindset that refused to back down. So what happens when that driver doesn't just show up, but shakes the entire race? Because what Cleetus McFarland did at Rockingham wasn't just surprising, it was uncomfortable for the biggest names in NASCAR. It raised questions, it exposed pressure, and by the end of it, some of the sport's top drivers looked like they were in serious trouble. This wasn't supposed to happen. Rockingham Speedway, The Rock, has always been a place where experience dominates. The surface is rough, the tire wear is brutal, and managing your car over long runs is what separates the best from the rest. This isn't a track where you can just show up and be fast. You need discipline, you need patience, you need control, and most importantly, you need experience. That's why, heading into this race, most people had already made up their minds. Cleetus McFarland. He'd be entertaining, maybe even competitive for a few laps, but over the course of a full race, this was a different level. But from the very first laps, something felt off. Not for him, for everyone else. Because Cleetus didn't come in cautiously. He didn't spend time learning slowly. He didn't stay out of trouble. He attacked. From the green flag, his driving style stood out immediately. Aggressive entries, confident positioning, and a willingness to push the car harder than expected. At first, other drivers didn't react. They stuck to their plans, managed their pace, focused on long runs, because in NASCAR, especially at a place like Rockingham, you don't win the race in the first few laps. But then something changed. Lap after lap, Cleetus didn't fall back. He didn't fade. He stayed right there, matching pace, holding position, refusing to disappear. That's when the first signs of pressure appeared, because when someone unexpected stays competitive longer than they should, it forces others to pay attention. Drivers started watching him more closely, testing him, putting him in tighter situations, seeing if he would crack. But he didn't. If anything, he pushed back. And that's when things started to get uncomfortable. Because now, it wasn't just about Cleetus proving himself. It was about established drivers realizing something they didn't want to admit. This wasn't a fluke. This was real. As the race progressed, Rockingham's toughest challenge began to take over: tire wear. This track destroys tires. Drivers have to constantly manage their pace, balancing speed with conservation. Push too hard and you fall off quickly. Go too easy and you lose positions. This is where veterans usually dominate. This is where experience shows. But Cleetus adapted. Instead of overdriving, he adjusted his rhythm. He learned how the car behaved over long runs. He started managing his pace more intelligently, and suddenly, he wasn't just surviving, he was competing. Drivers who expected him to fade now had a new problem. They couldn't shake him. And when you can't shake someone, you start feeling pressure. That's when mistakes begin, small ones at first, a slightly missed braking point, a less than perfect corner exit, a hesitation in traffic. Nothing dramatic, but enough. Because in NASCAR, small mistakes lead to bigger consequences. Positions get lost, momentum disappears, confidence starts to drop, and that's exactly what started happening. Some of the sport's biggest names began struggling, not because they lacked skill, but because the race wasn't going the way they expected. Instead of controlling the pace, they were reacting, and reacting under pressure is dangerous. Fans watching couldn't believe it. Social media exploded with reactions. "This is unreal. He's actually challenging them. No way they let this happen." But not everyone saw it as a good thing. Some fans raised concerns. Is he pushing too hard? Is this style sustainable? Is this disrupting the race more than helping it? And that's where the conversation shifted, because this wasn't just about performance anymore. It was about identity. What does NASCAR represent? Tradition, structure, experience, or is it evolving into something new? Cleetus McFarland represents that change. A driver who didn't come through the traditional system. A personality who built his following outside the sport. Someone who brings a completely different kind of energy. And that creates tension. Because when something new challenges something established, it forces adaptation. As the race moved into its later stages, the intensity increased. Drivers were no longer just racing for position. They were racing for control. And Cleetus was still there, still pushing, still competing, still refusing to back down. At this point, it wasn't just surprising, it was disruptive, because now, every move he made mattered. Every position he held forced others to adjust. And that's when the real impact became clear. Some drivers started taking bigger risks, trying to regain control, trying to prove something. And that's when things got messy. Not chaotic, but tense. Because pressure changes decisions, and decisions under pressure aren't always perfect. By the time the race reached its final laps, one thing was undeniable. Cleetus McFarland had changed the race. Not just for himself, for everyone. He didn't need to win to make a statement. He already had. For the drivers, this created a new reality. They could no longer underestimate him. They could no longer treat him as just an outsider. Because now, he was part of the competition. And that changes everything. For teams, it raised new questions. How do you prepare for drivers who don't follow the same patterns? How do you adapt to someone who brings a different style? Because unpredictability is one of the hardest things to manage in racing, and Cleetus brought exactly that. For fans, this moment was unforgettable, because it wasn't just about speed. It was about disruption. It was about seeing something different, something unexpected, something that made the race feel fresh again. Looking ahead, the impact of this race could be huge. Because now, expectations have changed. The next time Cleetus McFarland lines up on a NASCAR track, he won't be ignored, he won't be underestimated, and that makes him more dangerous than ever. For the established drivers, this becomes a challenge. They have to adapt, they have to respond, they have to prove that experience still matters. Because if they don't, moments like this could happen again, and maybe even on a bigger scale. For NASCAR itself, this opens a new chapter. A chapter where new types of drivers can enter the spotlight, where traditional paths are no longer the only way, where the sport continues to evolve. And that evolution isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary, because growth comes from moments like this. Moments that challenge expectations, moments that force change, moments that remind everyone, anything can happen. And sometimes, it only takes one unexpected driver to prove it. In the end, this wasn't just a race at Rockingham. It was a turning point, a moment where the balance shifted, where the established order was tested, and where Cleetus McFarland showed the entire NASCAR world something important. You don't need the perfect path to create an unforgettable moment. And the next time he hits the track, it won't just be another race, it will be a warning. Because now, everyone knows what he's capable of.